Just like all of the other East versus West athletes, Auden Larratt has also reached Arkansas for his upcoming match against Jeremy Parker. This is what he posted. Arkansas inbound, I am tired. Then after that, he posted 2 days out, still tired. So we have to discuss that Auden was having I can call it a severe cold. We saw that in the Devon Larratt live stream. Hope he has recovered now. And a couple of days ago, under my Auden Larratt should cancel this match video, Auden commented this: I will beat him all the same. So I'm not sure if he was talking about how Kim Kimma was handling Abhas Rana with a defensive top roll or how Yuvraj handled him with an offensive top roll. I think Auden can do both if he's strong enough. Alizhan has been teasing the young South African lion, Riekerd Borman, since the very first time he saw him. So in this video, he's talking about hooking him and Riekerd is talking about flop pressing him. They are saying a lot of things without actually saying a lot of things, or without saying anything actually. I don't think it will be a hook versus flop battle. I think it will be a king's move versus flop. Obviously, Alizhan will be king's moving and Riekerd will be flopping. We have already seen a great flop from Riekerd. He defeated Lars Rohrbachen with that move. So maybe he can go through Alizhan as well. And there may be a reason why Alizhan has literally been asking, or I can even say begging for a right-handed match to prove himself. Maybe he knows something that we don't. Maybe his right is at a completely different level now. Maybe it is close to his left, a level that we have never seen before. He's calling himself a giant slayer, which I don't think he is. I think Alizhan is forgetting that it's a right arm match, not a left arm match, and his right arm is definitely not a giant slayer arm, at least not at the top level of arm wrestling. But these two did grip up on the left arm. I don't know what Riekerd was trying to feel there. Like obviously, Alizhan is going to feel to him like a brick wall, especially after seeing Schoolboy destroy Riekerd's left arm. He is not going to be able to tell how strong Alizhan's left is. Artyom Morozov has arrived in USA and he is looking gigantic, flexing under the USA flag. And when Devon and others say that his right arm is much bigger, his bicep kind of looks the same, but his forearm, the right forearm, is definitely looking slightly bigger than the left. So I hope it is stronger than the left as well. Earlier, Morozov was known as a left-handed guy primarily. Now his right is stronger. It may be because of the injuries on the left, but his right was injured too. So the Terminator feels that he's ready to steal the world number 3 rank from the gladiator Hermes Gasparini. But Hermes isn't lacking confidence. He thinks that signing hundreds of these posters is actually a lot stronger than defeating Morozov on the arm wrestling table.
Alright.
Okay.
Hand cramp.
It's more difficult to compete.
Yeah.
Will be more difficult than to beat Morozov.
Say again?
I forgot to talk about Australia's strongest arm competition, which happened last Sunday. Lachlan Adair lost to Matai Varangi Hetamoris, and in fact he tore his bicep in the first round. So finally, Hetamoris took his revenge, and now I think he's the number 1 in that oceanic region. Milo Larratt also competed there against Josh Barker, and I was surprised to see how easily Josh was able to flop through Milo. And Milo outweighed him by like 20-25 kilos. Despite that difference, he couldn't slow the match down at all. After losing, Milo thought it's a good idea to try the left arm against Josh, since Milo's left may be slightly better than his right. But Josh beat him on the left arm too. Completely dominated him. Brian Shaw likes to say that he wouldn't take criticism from those people that he wouldn't take advice from. Now it may sound cool at first, but it is a completely flawed logic. We will discuss that later in this video. But the good news is that earlier Brian Shaw used to say, or I should say he said once in a video, that arm wrestling has to fit his life. He wouldn't fit into the arm wrestling lifestyle. But after getting some advice and some feedback from Robert Baxter, Brian did say that arm wrestling can actually fit into his life. So maybe he is going to try once again. In this podcast, most of the time was allotted to discussing Robert Baxter's lifestyle, his early youth days, his school days, his early business days. I won't go into the details of that. I'll just highlight the topics that they discussed. They talked about Robert Baxter's athletic career, how he used to be interested in individual sports and not team sports, how he used to run 400 meters, 400 meter hurdles, then he used to run 10 miles every day, how he married his wife. His brother-in-law was supposed to talk Robert out of that marriage, but instead they ended up arm wrestling and Robert defeated that strong guy, his brother-in-law. He got impressed and he started rooting for the marriage. So that was a cool story. Then his early video business and some marketing innovations under the guidance of his father. Then the brutal realities that he learned about the restaurant industry after he got into that business. Then some real estate ventures, Wall Street, predicting the 2008 crash, capitalizing on that. Then transitioning into land acquisition. Finally, the rise of Five Guys. And eventually after that, his latest business, East versus West Arm Wrestling, which he believes is the toughest business out of them all by far. And it's not even close. Even he doesn't know how he can work 20 hours every day, 7 days a week with just 4 to 5 hours of sleep in a day. That's how taxing this arm wrestling thing is, especially because he has to decide new venues almost every 6 weeks. And getting a venue and dialing everything down is a real tough job. Then Robert talked about getting into China, how they have already sent their master referees to train the officials in China as per the unified table rules and standards and everything. Then they are planning expansion through Southeast Asia. They'll be going in Malaysia, Thailand, South Korea, Singapore, Philippines. They're just following the UFC global touring blueprint. Then the Brian Shaw talk started. So Brian mentioned this manifester practice pull a bunch of times. So he was saying that he was already exhausted. The practice pull was right after his match against Leonidas Arcona. It is quite understood that Brian was gassed out and Manifester wasn't, because he went through Samusha pretty easily that day. And that's why Brian was saying that he knew that Manifester is a high-level arm wrestler. He just went to the table to learn a thing or two from him. He wasn't going all out on the table against Manifester. He didn't even know that somebody was recording that practice pull. Brian also said that in a perfect world, everyone should leave their cameras outside, their phones outside, and shouldn't record such things. He mentioned these same things at least a couple of times in that interview. And to me, it looked like that practice pull where he's getting pinned by Manifester, it did bother him a lot. And that also makes me think that when Brian was hiding his practices, his table work, his gym work, was it really because he tried to keep it a secret? Or was it because he didn't want the world to see him getting pinned, even though he may have been trying as hard as he possibly can? It can either be one of these two things. So yes, all of the things that Brian mentioned about the Manifester practice pull are in fact true. I'm not saying that Brian is lying or something. But he also forgot to mention one thing, that none of these things would have mattered. I mean to say that even if Brian had an easy match against Leonidas Arcona, they both were fresh on the table, and Brian was going all out, which he didn't in the actual practice, still it wouldn't have changed anything. And I think Brian could have acknowledged that in that interview. Manifester would have still gone through him with equal ease. Now that's a completely different story, that Manifester just became a world champion. Although he's very young, but he's an experienced arm wrestler. He shouldn't have gone all out on Brian Shaw just to get some ego-satisfying pins on him on the practice table. He probably shouldn't have done that. But he did that doesn't really mean that Brian should be super upset about that video being out there. So both Robert and Brian agreed that arm wrestling fans can hyper-analyze the videos, the out-of-context videos. They just like to do that. But he assured Brian that seasoned arm wrestlers, experienced pullers, they do know how tired Brian Shaw was, and they do know how fresh and strong Manifester was. This practice pull doesn't really tell us anything. But anyways, Brian did say in some very soft, indirect words that he didn't mean to say that he's quitting arm wrestling when he uploaded that video, and it was taken out of context. Robert told Brian that he doesn't have to go all out in arm wrestling. He doesn't have to arm wrestle every day. Once a week table time, practice with some good guys which he can easily invite over to his house. That should be enough for Brian Shaw if he keeps compounding those exercises, those weekly arm wrestling workouts. Brian once again mentioned that he thought, when everyone was telling him that it is going to take years and years to get better at the table, he thought that he can speed things up with his experience from the strongman days. He also realizes that he has a massive following from strongmen, and maybe that is one of the reasons why people put so much pressure on him. Once again, I'm going to say people did not go to his arm wrestling table when Devon was there and put Levan Saginashvili's name on there. Maybe he also didn't do that. Devon Larratt did it, but he showed it in his video anyways. He was the one who was talking about having Levan Saginashvili as a goal right from day one. So I don't think it's the fans that put that pressure on Brian. Brian put that pressure on Brian. So Robert was doing a good, consistent job of assuring Brian Shaw that he's on the right path and he shouldn't worry too much. That's why he also told him, while comparing the Leonidas Arcona match between John and Leonidas match with Brian Shaw, that Brian's hand looked better than John, and John is known for his hand strength. Brian did not lose his wrist to Leonidas, but John Brzezinski did. And this is something that Brian Shaw should be proud of. His hand and wrist is already awesome. Robert told him that he should be working on his hook and his inside power more, so that his arm power catches up to his hand strength. Now discussing the intro of this video. I think it is kind of obvious that Brian isn't immune to criticism. In fact, I would say that it kind of affects him more than it should. More than it should affect a guy of his caliber. If Brian is saying that he wouldn't take criticism from the guys just because they haven't done as much as him, then he can probably take advice, especially strength related advice, maybe from 5 people in this world. And even Elon Musk can take business advice from at least thousands of people in this world. Just because you have been the best at something doesn't really mean that no one else can give you any advice. Imagine if some of you give me some advice in the comment section. Some criticism, not advice. Obviously, I don't know you, and since I don't know you, I wouldn't take advice from you. But just because I don't know you, it doesn't really disqualify you from being able to give some criticism to me. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Code Pradeep for the pay-per-view. I'll see you again.